everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Wisdom Words podcast, where every week we talk to folks who have stories, advice, and life hacks, all of which take you one step closer to that feeling of hope. I'm your co-host, Neil Trevetti.
And I'm your co-host, Rini O'Day.
And today we have the absolute pleasure of welcoming back one of our earliest guests when this podcast was very different. But he fits into all types of podcasts because he's that talented. We are welcoming Robert Fish, writer, also known as Verde Mar on Twitter and on all other social media circles. Welcome back, Robert. Such a pleasure to have you.
Hey, Neil, Rini, it's a pleasure.
Hi, Robert.
Hope you guys had a nice holiday and New
Fabulous.
Year. Very good.
Fabulous.
Yeah. But I can't believe it's been a year and a half since
no, it hasn't.
the time we had a
Oh my
podcast.
God, time flies.
I know. I mean, I think back
flies.
then I had somewhere around 300 rights, and I was dreaming of publishing a book. And here we are, 18 months later, and I have 1,200, and I published my book.
We were trying to, I remember when we first time we talked about it, we said, "Oh, come on, and we'll promote your book and all that." And while we were talking, one of the things you mentioned to me was how much you cherish your alone time. Right. And this is something that I've said always, pretty much practically all my life, is solitude is underrated to me. However, not everybody shares that opinion. There are people out there who are very afraid to be alone, very afraid of solitude, and just, are terrified by their thoughts. So let's start with that. First, can you define what is the significance of solitude to you? When I say that word, what is it? Because a lot of people would say fear or anxiety. What does it conjure up for you? Right.
Yeah, Neil. So, one of the things I like about every time we talk is this is totally unscripted. So, I wrote something about this a couple of weeks ago, and I can read it in a little bit. But if you think about it, we're born into this world, and we start screaming our heads off, and we're alone. And my question is were we not alone before? And now we're alone. And if you think about it, we spend our whole life, before we leave, the only person that is not, we have ourselves in our own heads. You could say that there's constant dialogue, and I think with poets and writers, we have that dialogue amped up all the time, thinking about all kinds of metaphors, exactly, So, I think philosophically, if we came from wherever we were before we were born, from a place where we were never alone, maybe all that is, I don't know. And we're in this universe, and we are alone, except for our friends and our family, but we're really by ourselves, except for the dialogue in our heads, our entire lives. And then at the end of our life, we leave. And the question is what happens after that?
We choose the life we come into.
Right.
We come back. Yeah, we come back to live the life that we made mistakes in before.
And so the question is, are we learning how to be alone in this lifetime so that when we leave, there was a show called the OA that talks about,
I'm watching it.
An infinite number of universes. And every time you make a decision, you split off another universe. And so the question is, here we are, we're alone our whole lives. When we leave, do we create a universe and, we're it? And we learn our lessons while we're here. And the longer we're here, the more we have to learn. So the idea of aloneness is very interesting to me. And it's impacted a lot of what I write about as well.
Well, we're also here to fix our karma. So get good karma. Robert, so when you write, because you are phenomenal, you're one of my favorite writers in the whole world. And you just turn out poetry like McDonald's turns out hamburgers. I just can't believe your brain. Now, did you take a word and make it into a poem, or do you have to think about it? What's your,
right. Yeah.
you know?
So we talked a little bit about this the first time, we talked,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the beginning, how it took me over an hour to write something that would fit on Amazon. I mean, on Twitter, which is 280 characters or whatever, over an hour, and I remember looking back at college about things I wrote to give me ideas for things that I would write about. And now, it's a vibe, it's how, it's how I feel, and typically I'll listen to a song. We talked a little bit about that. And the music that I've listened to over the last couple of years, writing on Twitter has changed. And now it's just, I don't even necessarily need a song. It's kind of like, where's my head? And yeah, sometimes it's like a word or something comes up, or I'll just hear something, or, we live our lives, drawing, using metaphors and analogies to think and create words. In a sense, making up our own language. And poetry is interesting to me because there's no right or wrong. And, when I think about, the tagline on Turbulent Waves is, enigmatic micro-rights cast ashore during a global pandemic. And that's what I write. I write little stories, vignettes, you could say, versus in some of the poetry I read, it's like gorgeous. And it just, and mine is, what I'm trying to do is show you something. Something that I've seen along the way.
And another thing, like you mentioned that you're trying to tell a story. What about telling yourself? How is there a process of catharsis? And I think most writers, it usually is, but how does that work for you? How cathartic is it? Do you write about situations that are going around you, or does it help? Is it a form of therapy? Get into that process. What does it do for you once you write it?
Right. So Neil, that's a great question. And some of this, and a lot of this is in my book, Turbulent Waves. And because of the turbulence that kind of surrounds us, not necessarily because of COVID, but just being alone in life, And I wrote about the Sandy Hook Elementary School. And it's called, right?
Yeah.
And I went there and I walked the streets, and I think I read it the last time, and it's very surreal. We went through a period of the Me Too period, right? And this whole thing of sexism and the difference between women's rights and men's rights. I wrote a right called Raped. Now, I've never been raped, but I put my head in that space. I wrote about being, growing up, as a kid. And I'm going to be in an anthology this month called Hidden in Childhood. And by Gabriella Millen and Literary Revelations. And Black Lives Matter. I wrote about, what it feels like to be, cast aside in society, despite the fact that, you've basically participated and helped make America what it is today. So, it's interesting that you asked me that, because a lot of what I write is relationships I've had, particularly ones that are deeper, and have felt very strong attachment to, I would argue that, I've had people in my life that when I think about the last 3 years, they represented my muse, right? And so, and Rini, you and I have chatted a little bit about this, and that is kind of like a thread that goes through my writing, because I think we all can do that. And so that's another way I do this. I just kind of think about, again, what's that feeling like? What's the vibe like? And I don't necessarily mean all love and happiness. Like we were talking a little bit about, Black Lives Matter, what happened, that massacre in the town. So I have 11 elements in my book, Turbulent Waves, and one of them is called Mamauzine. Mamauzine was the goddess of memory. And so for every element in my book, I have gorgeous photograph. And for Mamauzine, I made a graphic of the American school shootings that have happened over the last 30 to 50 years, and there are hundreds of them. And a lot of people don't know this. We've become immune to another school shooting. But hundreds.
I know.
So scary.
Yeah.
To me, like the universe is talking through you. I hope people don't think I'm weird by saying that, but we are energy, and we are all connected. And so, you don't know where it comes from,
Right. Yeah.
But to me, it sounds like the universe is. So, let's talk about the COVID shutdown. Okay.
Sure.
I know a lot of people that went into depression because of it. I did. I loved it, but I became depressed, I mean, thank God for this podcast and my best friend Neil, because, God knows, you never know what's going to happen. Anyway, when you were stuck at home, and you were writing, were you thinking about, fighting out of going into depression or anything? I mean, did your writing help you not go there?
So,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question, Reedy, and I think part of it has to do with my personality. And
funny as hell.
Well, it's called introverted intuition, and I like my alone time. I use it to recharge. Yeah. And people that are similar, have a similar, personality to this. They need that, and they'll gravitate to things like reading and music and writing. And what do you do in those things? It's you and nobody else, So, so in a sense, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. We're alone our whole lives, and I'm very happy being, myself. I can walk.
I couldn't imagine you anybody else.
I'm one of these people that can go to a party and not know anybody and do great. On the other hand, I'll shy away from it. I would prefer just to do my own thing. But come up with a topic that I'm really in love with, and you can put me on a podcast.
I know, right?
Yeah. I can so relate to that. I'm glad you brought that up, because it was similar with me. It's like everything, the chaos was going around. And of course, I had my concerns about it, just like anybody else would. It's not that I didn't worry about it. I was that nonchalant enough to say, I don't care about of course I didn't care. But in a very similar mold to you, I was like, look, dude, I've been dealing with basking in my own company for so long that this is not really too different for me personally than it would be if we didn't have the pandemic going on.
Yeah. It's interesting. If you, when, we are at home, we're pretty well, segregated, secluded. And, as a writer, you don't really have a boss. When you self-publish, same thing. You're on your own, and I love that. Now, it's been 3.5 years that I've been writing. It's an absolute thrill. So I did select a few that if you want me to read anything, I can read something.
Yeah.
Sure.
Why don't you do that? Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So the first one is called Turbulent Light, okay? I wait under your light, filtering my wandering road. What am I here for now? And who am I today? My mind ravenous, speaking in rhymes to my heart, turbulent metaphors, tying you to me. Yet hearts also find riddles, and I lose my way home. And as the road becomes a pasture, and I need to eat. Right? So we just got through Christmas and the holidays. So, the next day I was thinking about Christmas, and there's the there's movies about the the ghosts of Christmas past and stuff. I wasn't thinking about when I wrote this, but for here, this is about the holidays. Ghosts of Christmas. You knew me when we met, our first time under the sun, dancing like we had forever, even smiles slyly kissed. Yet our light fades at moonrise, slipping between what's real, drumming into our dark, begging for us to be. So we both erased our poetry, stunned into becoming now, recalling who we once were, gifting us that one last look.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That is amazing.
We talked a little bit about, being alone, right? And what was like before we were born, life now, and then life after. So I wrote something about that, okay? And it's called Being Light. No remembering.
I love that.
No, being light. No remembering or holding. Time and light forgotten. Everything all at once. We don't even know music. Star birth makes now us, screaming into light and time, maddening childlike thoughts. Why did you leave me alone? Doors beckon beyond time. Teacher delivers a child. Who are we once time lets go? Will we remember being light?
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
In a sense, when you think about it, most of us don't think about, the afterlife or what's going to happen after we die, because it's scary,
I do.
We all think about it once in a while. And obviously, I was thinking about it then, right? But what do we have here in the universe that's kind of unique to us right now? Time and light. And what would life be?
Time goes like this.
Right. And what would life
like
be like with no time and no light?
We invented time.
Got my head around. Yeah.
We invented time. This earth was not, created on a clock.
Well, can you invent more of it for me?
Yeah, I know, right? It's going, I know. I mean, now it's going fast. When you're a kid, you want to grow up. And then you're grown up and you go, oh shit, this stuff stinks. No. But you have to take responsibility for yourself. And
I have one more if you want me to read.
Please.
So what's interesting to me is, so I'm originally from back east, New England, Rhode Island, and I lived next to the Wampanoag Trail. And the Wampanoag Trail was named after the Wampanoag Indians. And there's a rite in Turbulent Waves about the Wampanoags. They were called people of first light. They lived 16,000 years ago. And they were massacred in New England by the early Americans. So that rite is in my book, but I was thinking about that a couple of weeks ago. And so I wrote something about, two Wampanoags, that their lives. And their names are Sequoia and Nepenthe. What's interesting, I picked Sequoia because Sequoia was an Apache who invented a language and an alphabet for the Apache Indians. And as a writer, I just was very enamored with the idea with that. And so I used Sequoia as a user ID on a number of things. So this is called Sequoia and Nepenthe, okay? Sequoia stoked ash, morning dew spider webbing, sunrise warmed skies, gauntlets challenge awaits. Nepenthe sears a glance, winds violin her vibe. Our tribe collects a hush. Eerie moon refuses to set. We walk out in dark. Mountain thunder falls. Children's laughter sings. We take the day.
So tell us about the latest book. You touched on it earlier, of course, but give us all the details.
All right. So So I just.
How did it come about?
Right. I just self-published Turbulent Waves, Enigmatic Microrights Cast Ashore During a Global Pandemic. And I learned a lot. There are more things that will happen with that book later this year. And so I'm very excited about it. When I started it last summer, I had about 1,000 rights, and I was going to put them all in the book. and I did some research, and I found out a small collection of poetry is 20 to 40 pages, and a large collection is 40 to 80 pages. And when I first put this together, I had over 500 pages, and I was like, oh my god. So I edited it down to about 300, and now I have another 700 poems for putting together my second book. And so I started thinking about that now too. And while the first one is called Turbulent Waves, the second one is going to be called A Wave Without a Shore.
I love that. And guess who came up with that? No, I'm kidding. I always like to take his thunder.
Yeah. And so there's a real emotional experience that you go through when you're done and it's over. So a lot of people, I suspect, love the idea of what they're doing, and they're in it, and they look forward to doing it again. And so I've got the material since I actually published back in, I guess, the end of September. I've done another 100. So I've got 100 plus 600 that didn't go into the first book. So I got to think about how I'm going to do this. But it's a lot of fun.
Can I throw something in here right now?
Yeah.
Can I read one of your poems?
Of course.
Can I read one of? Yeah. Okay. So I went to the doctor the other day, and he told me I had to start wearing glasses. And then I kicked him in the balls. No, I'm sorry. Sometimes I just say the silliest things. Okay. So it's called Finding My Soul. I've sold my soul to yours, waiting under the sun, burnt and remembering. Our timeless fire shared as we laughed, astonished in our unique flight, will always covet. Without you now, I'll wait for the rain, hiding crazy tears to find my soul again. Singing your music while I wonder if you'll ever return. I read that a lot. I read that one a lot. So so let's give everybody where they can get your book if they want to contact you about, writing or anything, an email or something.
Sure. Before I say that, I just want to touch one more thing about the aloneness, because I think that was a thread that we've kept through this.
Please.
And you could argue that social media has become more important the last 3 years during this than it was before. I actually created an account on Twitter in 2011, and I never used it. It's like, why? Same thing, and recently Instagram. But it's obvious that the community, the wider global community in social media, whether it's Twitter or any of them, Instagram, and there's new ones coming. Jack Dorsey, who created Twitter originally, is going to have a new one later this year, maybe called Blue Sky. So we'll see.
No way.
So my book Turbulent Waves is on Amazon right now. Just if you type in Turbulent Waves Verde Mar, it'll bring you to it. I am on Twitter. My handle is tetrametrical one, Verde Mar. If you type in Verde
That's
Mar,
a mouthful.
Yeah, you'll probably find it. The other thing, so in addition to the Turbulent Waves on Amazon, Gabriella Milton from Literary Revelations is publishing a book, an anthology this month called Hidden in Childhood, and I was invited to participate. There's I think 100 authors in this book. It's going to be large, but it's a gorgeous anthology about experiences that you had, quote, hidden in childhood. And so she was able, Gabriella was able to pull that out of us. And I look forward, that's a book that everyone should look forward to reading, called Hidden in Childhood by Literary Revelations.
When's it coming out?
Right.
Later at the end of the month. Well, the other part of social media during the COVID, is, we are a global community, and we make these bonds and deep friendships with people all over the world. And I know people in the Seychelles Island off the east coast of Africa. I know people in South Africa, and I know people, and I know what they have gone through with losing people, fathers and husbands, children, their kitties, their dogs. And the negative, we can't hug them. If somebody's local and family, we all get together, and human touch and what we see with our eyes is wonderful. It's a wonderful healing agent that we have while we're here. But some of the friends that we can't do that with, we have to use words, and I think that's another thing that poetry has been able to do for us during this time of COVID. Where we can use our words to help wrap, us around, the friends we have in the global community. Start again. This is called Dancing with Everyone. Reading everyone like your poetry. No one knows what they say. Even glances find delicious as we surreptitiously take them. Haunting me, your final look. Sighs, piano are weeping. As echoes ripple through us, stark terror stalks what's left. When you're all alone now, mirroring who we once were, will you try my memory on? Taste what our dance meant?
Oh, God. Wow.
Okay, buddy. It's been
that was fun.
A joy to have you on.
Yeah.
It really is.
Thank you.
We love it.
Absolutely. All right. Have a good one.
All right. We'll see you later.